Hey guys, tonight we will slip into a world of blue fire and slow breath, where the sky folds itself into the ice and the corridors ahead glow like bottled dawn. You walk at an unhurried pace, listening to the soft creak beneath your boots and the easy hush that settles across your shoulders like a winter shawl. For a tiny reality check, if you tried to wander these caverns alone without guides or gloves, you probably won't survive this wind long enough to admire the view. But that's why we go together, with gentle steps and good company, letting the land set the rhythm. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you feel like sharing, write your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. You step through an arch of glazed blue, the walls catching breath in shimmering layers that press a cool kiss against your cheeks. The aurora runs inside the ice like a river of green silk bending with the rock's slow grammar. Lanterns bob toward you, whale oil flames cupped in carved stone, their light the color of warm honey. 3 seal hunters wait just beyond the threshold, their hoods roughed with frost, their smiles patient as noon. One raises a lamp and tips it toward you in greeting. Another slides a cloak over your shoulders, fox fur edging your jaw, the stitches neat as poetry. The third holds a bundle under her arm and watches you with the kind of curiosity, the "I recognize a traveler" kind. You accept the cloak, and the weight of warmth settles across your spine. Your breath floats in pale lace. The eldest hunter, whose laugh lines have been folded by many winters, speaks your welcome with a small bow. Stay near the light, keep your sound gentle, let the ice talk first. You nod because the place already speaks. Faint music of water threading rock, a distant pop where the glacier remembers the sea. A glide of lamp halos reveals low reliefs carved into the frozen walls, fish rising like commas, moons like thumbprints, the long curve of a whale that seems to move when the flame does. You trail a gloved finger along a shallow groove and feel the chill write itself into your palm. Behind you, footprints fill with powder-fine glitter, as if the floor has decided to keep a diary of your visit. The air changes as the passage bends. You taste a hint of salt, a memory of kelp, the ghost of summer hidden in the ice. The youngest hunter, no more than a few seasons past his first sled, taps the wall with a knuckle and listens. The corridor answers with a low, velvet hum that maps the shape ahead. "Singing ice," the elder murmurs, and you hear it too. A soft vowel traveling forward, telling you that the ceiling domes, that the floor inclines without malice, that a room opens like a held breath waiting to be shared. You arrive in that room. It is a sanctuary shaped by patience, the roof clear as glass water. Above, the aurora pours through a narrow seam and becomes a green feather drifting in slow motion. The hunters lower their lamps, and the ice gathers the small flames into a gentle, even glow, a hush light that makes every edge kind. There is no rush here. The elder loops a braided thong over a peg of frozen bone and hangs one lamp. The young hunter, with mittened fingers, coaxes a wick until the flame steadies like a heartbeat at rest. The watching hunter kneels and sets a flat stone on the ice, a small table of basalt polished by hands, and unknots the bundle she carried. "Eat?" she asks, voice soft as felt. She opens a seal-hide pouch and offers thin chips of dried fish, glossy and briny. You take one and feel it crackle crisply. Taste the sea, taste smoke. The flavor is uncomplicated, like the first sentence of a story that already knows its ending. Your stomach, surprised and grateful, answers with a quiet thank you that needs no vowels. A bone flute leans against a nicked soapstone bowl near the wall. The elder follows your glance and shrugs in a way that promises later, not yet. For now there is arrival, ears adjusting to the language of ice, eyes learning the grammar of green light. Somewhere a slow drip keeps time like a patient metronome. Somewhere the aurora's hush strokes the ceiling, and you feel the ceiling stroke your thoughts in return, smoothing them in long, even passes. Your hosts unroll a woven reed mat, a traveling hearth, and place the lamps upon it so the warmth gathers, nearer, kinder. You sit, letting the cloak pool at your knees, and your mind begins to loosen its small day knots. The elder asks where your path began, and you offer the short version. Something about a sky that never fully darkens, about a voice in a dream that smelled of salt and spruce and roasted fat. The hunters nod as if they expected exactly this, as if all travelers arrive with weather still clinging to their cuffs. From the corridor behind, a faint current slips across your cheek, colder air moving toward warmth, curious and polite. It carries a suggestion of berry, a shadow of smoke. The young hunter points down a side passage where the green feather narrows to a thread. "Home ahead," he says, which is a generous word for a stranger, but it fits. The syllables land gently along your spine like a palm smoothing a blanket. You rise and walk again, step slow and certain. The sanctuary guides you like a hall of old friends, turning your shoulders at the right places, rounding your stride where the floor ripples. Sometimes the lamps drift ahead around a curve, and you watch their glow play on the wall like boat lights on a midnight harbor. When you catch up, the elder hums a tune with only 3 notes, and you hum with them, because humming feels correct here, a way to keep company with the glacier, a way to be small and welcome and enough. Another arch opens, and beyond it the ice blushes with the faintest tint of rose, perhaps a calcite seam, perhaps the memory of a sunset frozen mid-sigh. The hunters pause to let you look, not because the sight is rare, but because first sights deserve unhurried silence. The young one taps the bone flute once with a mitten knuckle, a promise, not yet a song, and the tiny sound hops along the wall and comes back calmer, as if the corridor itself approves. Your fingers warm along the cloak's fur edge. You breathe in, you breathe out, and the sanctuary answers with its own long breath, a shared rhythm that feels like the beginning of a friendship you have been walking toward for years without knowing it. You pause on the lip of the corridor, and the elder raises one mittened hand, not to stop you, but to gather the moment like a small flame cupped from the wind. 3 rules, she says, voice low as lamplight. Breath, warmth, respect. The words cross the air in tidy steps, and you find yourself mirroring her cadence, already nodding, already softening at the edges the way frost softens a footprint. The lamps blink kindly. The aurora threads a soft green ribbon through the ice above, and your shoulders loosen as if the glacier itself had exhaled to make room for you. Breath first. She touches 2 fingers to her mouth and inhales through her nose, slowly, like sipping a calm sea. Small sips, she says. Let the air warm on the way. Her palm rests between your shoulder blades, reminding your ribs to open like quiet doors. You try it. A gentle draw, the chest barely rising. The exhale, a hush that makes the lamp flame lean but not shiver. Your first breath fogs your lashes, and your instinct is to gasp. You do not. You trade the city habit of gulping for the sanctuary habit of listening. When the ice sings, match it, she adds, and you do hear it now, somewhere in the corridor, a long velvety vowel, a patient O that takes its time and asks you to take yours. You oblige, and the small muscles along your neck stop trying to hold up the sky. Warmth next. The watching hunter, your cloak artist, steps close and reties the thong beneath your chin so the fur kisses your jaw rather than nibbling it. She folds your hood forward until the ruff makes a small warm cave for your face. She shows you how to tuck your sleeves over your mittens so quick winds never find your wrists, how to cup a lamp with curved palms without chasing the flame, how to move in short, tidy motions so you do not spend heat on grand gestures that prove nothing. From a pouch, she produces a smooth black river stone, lays it by the lamp, flips it once, twice, and rolls it into your glove. Pocket stone, she says. It is a small promise of summer, polite but determined. Carry your weather, the elder adds with a smile, and you understand. Warmth is not just temperature here. It is behavior, an economy of kindness practiced minute by minute. Respect, always. The elder taps the wall with her knuckle, and the corridor gives a soft answer, a velvet hum mapping the shoulder of the passage ahead. Ask before you speak loud, she tells you. The ice will say if it is in the mood for company. You learn fingertip signs when words would be too heavy. A circle traced on your sleeve for all well, 2 taps on the shoulder for slow, a palm pressed flat for listen. Names are used gently here. Places prefer nicknames, never shouted. Carvings are not stroked with bare skin. Animals are never pointed at with a jab. They are invited into the conversation with an open hand, and then left to decide. You practice your steps so your heel does not puncture the delicate frost flowers that bloom along seams. We treat the ice like an elder relative, and we do not interrupt an elder who is speaking. Before moving on, the young hunter lifts the bone flute, touches it barely to his lips, and breathes one soft note. It is not a performance, only a compass. The corridor answers with a sweeter echo from the right-hand branch. There, he says. He does not say market, but the elder's eyes tip toward a memory of barter and steam and patient chatter. If you hear 2 notes, it means we are home. the cloak artist adds, her smile hiding in the fur like a warm joke. You catch a hint of brine and soapstone drifting forward, the way a town tells on itself long before you see the roofs. They teach you door manners at the next threshold. A small bow to keep the heat from rushing out, a gentle shoulder turn so the ruff guards your neck, a tug on the seal-hide curtain to let the warm air settle back like water after a pebble falls. You practice the choreography and earned 3 approving nods, which land with the same comfort as another log on a sleepy fire. The young hunter presses your mitten against the curtain so you can feel the nest of warmth on the other side, an indoor weather you will not waste by barging through. You bow again, because it feels good to be polite to air. As you walk, the rules begin to feel less like rules and more like the grammar of kindness. You match your breath to the corridor's tone. You keep your warmth close the way you keep a promise. You let your respect travel ahead of you like a lantern's halo, preparing the space for your arrival. A crack sounds, sharp but brief, and your shoulders jump like honest shoulders do. The elder's mitten covers your sleeve, an anchor made of patience. Young ice, she says, it likes to stretch. You answer with the long, calm O, and your heartbeat obliges, stepping back in time with the room. The cloak artist pinches a curl of hoarfrost and lays it on your mitten, a feather made of weather, so fragile it dissolves when you laugh under your breath. The young one scrapes a little crust from the floor with a carved horn and lets you feel the difference between squeak ice and silk ice, between surfaces that ask for short steps and those that accept a longer glide. He shows you rope manners too, the way a sealskin line lays across the back of your mitten so it will slide rather than snag, the way a light slack keeps kindness between walkers so nobody drags anyone else's day. 3 touches, he says, tapping the rope. I'm here. Keep pace. And me. You repeat the touches, and the rope whispers yes along your wrist. You stop at a niche where 3 lamps already burn, tended by no one and everyone. The hunters warm their hands, then show you how to share warmth without stealing it, palm to palm but not pressed, fingers hovering so the heat can mingle in the small country between you. It is oddly moving, this little lesson in not taking too much, and your shoulders drop another notch. Food warms twice, the young one says, producing 2 more fish chips and a twist of dried berries as tart as good news. He steeps a pinch of seaweed in a stone cup over the lamp. The brew tastes like a friendly tide and leaves a small harbor in your chest. At the next bend, the aurora thins into a bright thread and then widens again, as if the sky were breathing beside you. Your feet discover the sweet spot between caution and confidence. You begin to sense where the floor will slope, where the ceiling prefers silence, where the wall keeps a memory. You are not a native, no, but you are no longer a tourist either. You are a polite guest with a decent coat and good listening skills. Ready? The elder asks. not really a question. You are. She lifts her lamp. The bone flute answers with a single, approving note, and a rumor of steam and soapstone and soft voices beckons you deeper toward the market the ice has been hinting at all along. The seal-hide curtain parts with a polite sigh, and the market opens like a warm palm. Lamps ring the cavern in patient constellations, their light reflecting as buttery halos from the ice. Steam rises from stone kettles in little braids. Threads of kelp hang like green ribbons between stall posts, edges curled by salt and thyme. A line of footprints waits at the entrance, and each pair shares the same posture, a small bow at the threshold, a pause to let indoor air settle, then 3 soft steps before conversation begins. You follow the choreography without being told, and the sanctuary seems to approve. Your breath tips into the long, calm vowel you learned, and the ceiling's faint song answers, pleased. Stalls nestle in a crescent around a still pool where a hairline seam in the ceiling pours aurora into the water. The green light becomes a gentle heartbeat, and the whole market keeps time with it. At the first table, a bone worker polishes a needle no longer than your smallest finger. He holds it in a scrap of hide and rubs it along slate until the eye shines smooth as a blink. Without looking up, he murmurs a compliment to the needle, as if tools grow straighter when praised. The elder translates with a smile. We talk kindly to work that will live in someone's skin. When you lean closer, he fans out a little constellation of toggles and hooks, shapes inspired by flipper, fin, and crescent moon, and places a pale toggle in your mitten. Traveler size, he says, and your pocket stone warms as if agreeing. Next, a soapstone carver bends over a slab of soft gray. With a seal tooth, she scrapes curls that fall into a bowl lined with fur, so dust never bites anyone's throat. The curls look like tiny sleeping waves. Her charms rest in tidy families, seals with 4 flippers tucked, spiral auroras small as thumbprints, a moon face with a crooked smile that suspiciously resembles the elder when she pretends not to laugh. You admire a charm shaped like 2 braids crossing. For safe return, the carver says, pressing it into your palm, and you feel the weight say, I'll remember the way back for you. Across the way, a stall of dried kelp is arranged like paper fans, bronze, olive, deep green. The vendor pinches a ribbon, swishes it through warm water, and offers it to you on the back of a knife. It tastes of low tide and sunlight, surprisingly sweet at the end. She keeps account by dropping smooth pebbles from her pocket into a wooden bowl. Not many pebbles move because most exchanges are gifts that travel forward in long circles. A boy beside her braids sinew into chord and hums to keep the rhythm. The hum threads the air so gently that even the lamps seem to breathe in time. There is no coin here, only conversation. Prices form like frosts, gradually, prettily, when conditions are right. A woman in a green scarf wants a new toggle. She promises to mend the drumhouse banner in return. An uncle needs a sled runner smoothed. He offers a story about the year the sea forgot to freeze until it remembered again all at once. You listen because listening is the market's favorite payment method. In one corner, an old ledger rope hangs with knots tied in pairs. When a promise is kept, a twin knot joins its partner. The rope shows a gentle history of favors that never hurry and never vanish. Food lives here too because kindness is easier on a full stomach.
A kettle of bone broth burbles, scented with spruce tips and a shy onion someone coaxed from summer soil far to the south. A woman crushes berries with snow in a seal-hide bowl, and the mixture turns the same blush as the calcite seam you admired earlier. She smears a fingerful onto a strip of dried fish and hands it to you. The sour and sweet spark and then settle, and your jaw forgets its tight city job. Tea happens in many small cups, stone, horn, carved bone, each warming hands without asking questions. A brewer lifts a lid to release a breath of kelp and thyme, and the steam finds your face like a friendly veil. Children draw game lines on the ice with soot, then slide polished pebbles along them to chase carved seals. When two pebbles kiss, the owner sings a little victory hum so soft, even the lamps have to lean closer to hear. A toddler drifts toward a lamp, and three adults lean, gentle as gulls, to curve her path with open hands. The redirect becomes a game. The laugh becomes a blessing. Nearby, an aunt shows two teenagers how to lash a sled so the load rides safe. She ties the final knot with a flourish and rests her fist on it as if listening to its heartbeat. You pass a rack of snow goggles carved from bone, narrow slits tamed to a creamy sheen by many sleeves. The cloak artist guides your fingers over a rim. She says, "We see better by seeing less." And though she means sunlight on snow, some part of you files the sentence under life lessons. Beside the goggles lies a basket of wicks woven from moss, a soft forest ready to feed lamps. A boy sets one in your palm and whispers, "For later." You tuck it away like a letter from a kind future. In the soft drum center of the room, a storyteller mends nets. Every time he pulls a knot tight, he lets out a word. The words have the rhythm of water over stones. He is not so much performing as seasoning the air. You catch fragments of a seal that loved one particular patch of sunlight, a year when the river pretended to be a road, a boat that learned to listen before it learned to float. People leave small offerings, berry stains, a sliver of driftwood polished like a thought, and he nods each gift into the story until the net and the tail shared the same pattern. When your pockets hold more thank yous than objects, 2 fish chips, a spare length of line, the braid charm warming your wrist, you feel the market's arithmetic add you in. The elder points out lamp wick moss drying in mesh pockets, seal oil filtered through snow so it burns without bitterness, a comb carved from antler that makes your hair whisper, a reed mat woven like a map of the aurora itself. She says market is a school, and school loves anyone who needs to learn. You buy nothing and still leave richer. The lamps incline toward afternoon, if afternoon can exist underground, and the room's volume lowers to a drowsy hum. Exchanges slow, hands linger a little longer over cups. You notice how every farewell is a soft blessing disguised as a joke. Walk where the ice remembers your name. Keep your pockets lined with weather. Don't bully the kettle. Tell the walls good night so they won't worry. You practice one under your breath and it warms your tongue. When at last you turn from the stalls, you carry the feeling markets most wish to leave behind, that you belong to something patient and well-made, that in the quiet arithmetic of kindness, you are already paid in full. The elder's lamp arcs toward a low tunnel veined with ferny frost. Your rope taps your wrist 3 times, "Here, pace, me," and you answer with your breath, small and steady, following your guides deeper into the sanctuary's calm mathematics of welcome.
The tunnel lifts you into a round white hush where the walls glow like the inside of a shell. A low passage mounts open and then closes behind your shoulders, keeping the weather folded neatly outside, the way a careful aunt folds a blanket. The elder lifts the seal-hide curtain with 2 fingers, so the warm air does not dash out and the lamp flames do not feel teased. Door manners, she reminds, and your bow remembers itself. Inside, the dome feels both close and endless, a soft sky stitched from snow blocks, their edges fitted so well that the seams look like quiet smiles. At the very top, a small vent, a moon hole, draws breath so steadily you start unconsciously matching it, the way you matched the corridor's slow vowel. Breath, warmth, respect. Your pocket stone nudges your palm like a well-trained seal pup, and you give it a grateful squeeze. Reed mats make islands around a shallow soapstone hearth that does more glowing than burning. 3 lamps sit there, whale oil sweet as nuts, their wicks braided from moss like little green rivers. Heat leans outward, not in a hurry, touching cheeks, loosening wrists, reminding stubborn shoulders that the day will not be impressed by their stiffness. The cloak artist pats a spot beside her, and you fold down, coat sighing, hood framing your face in a soft fur cave. Children are already nestling into lap-shaped spaces, 2 of them tucked so deeply into a blanket that only their eyes exist, big as lamp halos. No one says it is time for a story. Instead, the house chooses. The hearth gives a tiny throat clear of a pop. The lamps settle their flames as if smoothing hair. The moon hole draws a longer, calmer thread of air. The elder shapes her mitten over the bone flute, testing its warmth the way you test a cup, and nods when the instrument answers with a polite, almost human hum. The young hunter, still pretending not to be proud of his 2 strong wrists, rests a hand on the rope coil at his belt and waits, eyes on the elder's mouth as if her words are beads he will later restring. She begins in the way lullabies prefer, not with a once upon, but with a once again. Her voice is low, pebble smooth, content to take the long route. She speaks of a winter when the aurora forgot its manners and came right into the caverns, brushing the walls with such soft green that everyone's thoughts slowed to the same patient speed. She tells how an ancestor followed that green breath to a rib cave made from a whale's memory, where he found a curved bone that sang even before anyone blew across it. He did not claim it, she adds, and the cloak artist's eyebrows approve. He asked it, and the bone said yes. The flute answers with a thread of sound so thin you feel it before you hear it, a silk line stitching lamp-whispered to breath. The note is not sad or happy, it is tidy. It draws a boundary around the room so you all live in the same gentle country together, and then it softens, as if curtsying to the oil. The elder lays the melody like a path of snow between words. You follow, your mind stepping where it is invited, and never where it is not. When she says the first camp used soot marks to teach the walls the names of children, the flute repeats the children's shapes as 2 small notes, close together and brave. When she says the sea once wrinkled like a laughing face, the flute adds a ripple that makes the lamps chuckle in their cups. The house feels pleased, and why wouldn't it, being remembered so carefully? A grandmother with hair the color of frost-hugged driftwood leans forward and pinches your sleeve gently. "Etiquette," she whispers, and taps her chest. You realize you are smiling wide enough to make your cheeks squeak. The house likes smaller smiles, the kind that happen inside first.
You smooth yours down to something the lamp can share without effort, and she nods, satisfied, as if she has ironed a wrinkle in your mood. Nearby, a boy kneads a tiny ball of snow until it polishes to ice. Every time the elder pauses, he hands the ball to a neighbor so they can hold a small moon for a heartbeat and put some quiet into it. Stories arrive braided with instruction, but the braiding is subtle, a craft hand's thing. You learn that singing to the kettle lets it keep its temper. You remember the market's warning not to bully the kettle and feel pleasantly caught. You learn that a sled rope has 3 voices: pull, companion, apology. That you do not wake a sleeping dog by stepping over it, because dreams deserve the dignity of finishing their last sentence. You learn the blessing people speak to the lamps when they trim wicks, burn like a patient teacher. You learn the teasing reply the lamps give back, listen like a polite student. At a pause, a child tries the first 2 notes of a lullaby and gets them tangled. No one corrects her. The elder plays the same 2 notes over her, like a friend cupping a drink so it stops sloshing, and the child finds the path again. Your chest does that warm, foggy thing where it forgets how many hours you carried around in it today. The cloak artist passes you a cup of seaweed tea that tastes like a shoreline finally sitting down. "Drink slow," she murmurs. You do. Respect is quiet choreography, and you are learning the steps. Outside, the wind changes key. It is not a threat, only a throat clearing at the door of the world, a reminder that weather is practicing its scales. The moon hole's breath lengthens but holds. Someone pins a corner of the wall hanging with a sliver of bone, the pattern a map of Aurora corridors, green threads stitched into seal hide like rivers that forgot their noise and became manners. The elder points with her chin, which is how this place points when hands are busy. You see, the sky has a grammar, the ice writes it down. She shifts the melody and the house softens further. Now she is telling the histories that put babies to sleep, the year of the big berry laugh, the dog who taught a man to watch tide shadows, the dawn when 2 seals looked so deeply unimpressed with hunters that everyone went home to practice humility for a week. The flute keeps its politeness, never rising above a whisper. When a toddler's head lolls, the young hunter tightens the blanket with one neat tug that says, "Here, pace, me." You realize your own jaw has slackened into an expression you reserve for late trains and sunrise windows. The elder closes the song by playing 3 tiny notes that resemble your name only if your name were made of snow. "We write visitors into the room so the room will miss them later," she says, then brushes her mitten against the flute as if to thank it for good public behavior. The lamps get 1 trim each, a little haircut of wick, and the flames answer with well-groomed sighs. Your pocket stone presses its warm, amused face into your glove. The house seems to lean closer in a way that has nothing to do with architecture and everything to do with welcome. If this dome had a heartbeat, you would be inside it now, somewhere between the left ventricle and a promise. When the curtain lifts a finger's width, a ribbon of cooler air kisses your ankles, a polite suggestion that the market's murmur is winding down and other rooms are yawning. The elder taps your wrist once, "Listen," and the flute offers a farewell that feels like a soft mitten patting the night. You rise with the rest, not because anyone told you to, but because this is how the story sits down. On the way out, you remember to bow to the air so it does not run away, and the snow house, good-natured, well-fed on song, lets you go as if releasing a breath it plans to breathe again.
You re-enter the corridor as if taking your place in a sentence that paused only to breathe. The lamps lower. The fur around your hood remembers the shape of your face, and the aurora resumes its gentle handwriting along the ceiling seam. Maps, the elder says, not with the edge of school, but with the warmth of a kitchen table. She lifts her lamp and lets its halo skim the wall until green light wakes the blue. The ice answers by revealing what it hides for people who hurry. Faint braille of nicks and ridges, thumb-deep grooves rubbed satin by mittens, a scatter of soot freckles where storytellers once stood long enough to season the air. Memory roots, the cloak artist adds, guiding your glove toward a shallow channel about as wide as a finger. Not to carve the ice, only to reassure the mind. You stroke the groove and feel the history of other hands, other journeys, the way a railing remembers the stairs it keeps company with. At intervals, 3 tiny dimples appear like a paw print that learned mathematics. 3 marks means keep left of the green, she explains. 2 means follow the song. You nod, because even your pocket stone understands that the corridor sings different vowels at different bends. And you already love the low ooh that promises a safe descent. The young hunter raises the bone flute and releases a small, courteous note. The corridor returns it with a glow from paths you hadn't noticed. Aurora seems to lean harder into certain arches, as if pleased with the conversation. Sky inside, he says. He means that the aurora threads itself through the ice like a river through glass, and the elders long ago learned which threads lead where. He teaches you to read its grammar. A pale, even green for marketways, a deeper pulsing stripe for water doors, thin quills of light for narrow spines that prefer quiet feet. Overhead, a ribbon brightens, then sands itself soft again, as if agreeing with the lesson. You pass a shallow alcove pocked by a lattice of frost ferns. The elder invites your glove to hover, not touch. The pattern is delicate as eyelashes. Wind ferns, she says. They face the same way for days, then decide to up and gossip in another direction. You squint, and the ferns reveal their gossip, each frond tilting toward a broader chamber where warm air tends to linger. You do not need to be told this is where people meet after heavy weather to uncrumple their nerves. Your shoulders, newly wise, guess it alone. At the next fork, a seam of trapped bubbles drifts across the wall like a constellation paused mid-wander. Stars, the young one grins, borrowed from last winter and kept at the right height. He traces a curve through the bubbles with his mitten, leaving no mark but the memory of a path. He teaches you names, not the official names that make atlases clear their throats, but household names. Dog curl, fish spine, auntie's elbow, the big bowl that never empties. The dome house grandmother's laugh lives in one cluster, unmistakable even as frozen punctuation. You test yourself by closing your eyes and letting the rope speak along your wrist, here, pace, me, then opening them to find dog curl smiling exactly where you imagined it would wait. They show you the touch signs that live lower, for days when lamps crouch or breath makes fog cities. One broad ripple carved at ankle height means sled passed often here, good floor. 2 short ripples side by side mean mind your toe, edge ahead. A series of tiny pips, like the polite knock of someone who never assumes, marks a place where drip water laces the floor in spring. No drama, just better socks, the cloak artist says.
You slide your boot's edge along a pip line and feel your tread whisper thanks for the warning. In a long gallery, the aurora thins so the lamps become the punctuation. People have left offerings of direction the way birds leave twigs. A bowline knot looped on a peg to say, left when tired, right when curious. A whistle strung above shoulder height to say, you'll want this later. A little sachet of tea leaves tied at a junction to remind travelers to loosen their jaw before deciding anything. Beneath the sachet is a joke etched at knee level. 2 stick seals completely unimpressed with an arrow pointing nowhere. You hear again the story from the house, the week of practiced humility, and your smile learns to be the smaller kind, lamp compatible. Near a high crack that shivers with pale light, the elder stops and lifts your hand to the wall. This is a caravan path, she says. Your gloved palm rides over an almost invisible swell, as if the corridor grew its own sled runner once and kept it as a memory. She lowers her hand. If the ice wants a sign removed, it will knit it shut. You test a barely there groove and feel the knit begin, slow, patient, taking weeks to smooth out what should be smoothed. Respect is a map maker here too. The wall decides what keeps and what fades. A roof window opens above like a thin mouth of light. Through it, sky dots itself with stars that ignore your schedule. The young hunter angles his lamp so the roof rim glows and then sketches a star path with the flute. 3 notes to the right, a slide, a rest. When we travel on surface nights, we drop the map down here and ask the cave to keep it safe. He shows you how your mitten can mimic star patterns on the wall. Press, press, glide. Even your breath participates. You learn to time the exhale to the length of a corridor leg, so a long hall becomes 3 soft sighs and a turn. You come to a wall where someone has kept counsel with patience. An entire route is gently incised as a story rather than a line. A kettle, a fish, a rope coil, 2 lamps, a berry cluster, a sleeping dog, a door. The order of kindness, the cloak artist says. If you forget the map, remember the manners, and the map will remember you. You repeat it because it tastes right. Kettle, fish, rope, lamps, berries, dog, door. Your pocket stone uses its silence to approve. The elder pats the last icon. Every door here prefers to find you calm. At the far end of the gallery, the aurora brightens and bunches as if sky fingers press lightly from above. The glow pools on the floor and travels forward in a thin, obedient stream. River door, the elder says. It will be sleeping soon, best to visit it while dreams are pleasant. You are not headed to the water yet. That is a different lesson. But you look and store the color anyway, the way you keep a friend's laugh in mind for later. On the wall by the door, a series of tiny notches counts winter moons. A child has added a crooked extra notch with such earnestness that nobody has had the heart to sand it away. We do not edit enthusiasm, the young one whispers, smiling into his hood. By the time you loop back to the first fork, you can read the place the way people read a face they love. Faint soot kiss here, someone told a long joke last spring. Glossy patch there, mittens lingering in reassurance. Frost fern tilt, the room ahead holds singing. Even your steps begin to change shape, adjusting to the corridor's preferred rhythm so the floor receives you as one more polite idea rather than a request. The elder lifts her lamp, the flute gives 2 notes shy as moths, and the wall answers by glowing along the exact path home as if to say, "See, you already knew." You touch the braid charm at your wrist, safe return, promised, and the corridor writes your small confidence into its green margin. A note that will wait here, warm, for the next time you come looking for yourself.
The corridor thins and then opens to a mouth of light where the ice makes a low veranda above the tide edge. The aurora's green quiet filters through a roof seam and turns the wave skin into silk. You feel the sea first as temperature, the small teeth of air, and then as sound, a patient hush working thread through a needle. The elder tilts her lamp low so its halo strokes the floor rather than throwing itself at the water. Breath, she reminds, and your ribs remember the lesson, opening like careful doors. The rope taps your wrist. Here, pace, me. And you answer, easing weight into the soles of your boots until your steps are thoughts rather than footsteps. The young hunter kneels and shows you how the edge is red, the black of deep water, the pewter of shallow, the clouded milk where crushed ice turns secretive. He points with his chin at an oval in the surface, a seal's breathing hole fringed with lace. Another oval rests a body length away. Between them, a faint scuff tells of whiskers brushing a rim. "We don't stand in lines," he whispers, shaping his hand like a comma instead of a spear. "We bend." Your city knees, usually loud about their opinions, agree to be punctuation for once. From a skin tube, he draws 2 decoys. They are simple. Snow packed around a belly of kelp, a loop of dark hair for whiskers, a stubbled back scuffed with soot so it looks like someone who has seen a few winters and decided to keep them. He sets one decoy near the second breathing hole and lowers the other onto a small floe that hesitates at the edge, tethered by a fine line. "We ask with neighbors," he says, meaning decoys, and the elder nods. Today is a teaching day, not a taking day. Meat is already set back in the cool. Learning is the work that needs doing. You climb down to the lower shelf and practice the edge step, a heel to toe that lets the platform tell you how it's feeling. The cloak artist sits beside you and makes a pad for your elbows from a folded hide, then demonstrates the long exhale that moves your breath sideways rather than forward. It's a trick, a kindness. What leaves your mouth joins the air's own quiet drift, so the holes keep their calm. Your first try dumps a puff that skates across the ice like a nosy neighbor. The second glides obediently to the left and vanishes. "Better," she says, the word wrapped in fur. Together, you watch the water without squinting. Hunters say the sea notices ambition and plays tricks on it. You practice soft eyes instead, the kind that spot movement only when it wants to be found. The elder shields the lamp under her parka, and everything turns honest. The ice tells you small truths, a change in gloss where a current moves faster, a bead of water thickening along a rim that means a whisker brushed there a breath ago. Your pocket stone shares a lazy heat, and your heart, which earlier championed enthusiastic opinions about danger, now settles into the corridor's long ooh, a lullaby set to salt.
When the seal appears, it's as if the water decided to grow a nose. Only the dark oval shows, then 2 earless curiosity buttons, then a glisten of brow. It reads the decoy with the complete professionalism of someone inspecting a neighbor's new porch. The young hunter does nothing, which is very much something. You, who know every muscle in your face personally, learn to let them all take a nap at once. The seal investigates in a slow figure, surfaces at the second hole, exhales with a soft fog that smells like old stones and clean fish, then submerges to catalog more details. After a minute, it grants the decoy a bored blink, official approval, and vanishes in a silent letter scribed beneath the flow. Your shoulders celebrate too early, popping a tiny clack through your coat. The elder's mitten lands on your sleeve, gentle punctuation, and the sound folds back into the hush. The sea forgives clumsiness when it sees learning, she murmurs, half humor, half prayer. The cloak artist draws a circle on your wrist, all well, and passes you a spoonful of warm broth from a stoppered horn. It tastes like a crowded kindness, spruce and bone, and a quiet onion that knew its role exactly. He shows you the rope talk for water edges. 3 touches spaced like stars. Keep. 2 quick tastes. Careful. A single slow pull that means back to me now, please. You practice with the coil, letting it brush your glove rather than bite. Lines should be polite, even when they disagree, he says, and you think of every email you ever sent with elbows in it. Across the shelf, a younger cousin tries the decoy dance and accidentally spins the flow a quarter turn. The line writes a little impatience against his wrist. He apologizes with a loosened loop, and the flow, flattered, returns to neutral. Lessons multiply politely. You learn to hear the tides commute, the faint slurp as it clocks in beneath the under-ice road. You learn to smell weather's advance as a metallic maybe, far out, no hurry, the horizon clearing its throat. You learn how a glove can speak. Palm up for I agree. Palm down for save it. 2 fingers brushing your sleeve for remember your breath, which you do instantly as if you had misplaced it behind a lamp. The flute is not used here. The sea is the instrument and prefers a solo. When a small flow complains, a long bass creak like a door reluctantly narrating its life, everyone pauses and listens. The elder tests the platform with her heel as if apologizing to it. Young Ice loves to tell stories, she says. We stand where the story is polite. She shifts 2 steps, and the tone of the shelf lowers from gossip to diary. You follow. Your city balance, which usually acts like a drama teacher, quietly adopts its best-behaved student voice. Far out, a seal pops up again, the same or a cousin, hard to say. It huffs a question at your decoy, gets no answer, decides that's fine, and arcs away. The line in your mitten murmurs approval for not answering questions you haven't been asked. The cloak artist produces a scrap of soot and draws a tiny fish near your boot in the ice. A little note for the next passerby: friendly water today. She erase if tomorrow disagrees. The map stays current. Pride does not. At the lesson's end, the young hunter lifts each decoy and presses a thank you into its snow with his thumb, a habit that looks silly until you try it and discover your shoulders soften immediately. The elder uncaps the lamp and lets the flame look at the sea before capping it again, a formal bow between light and water. The rope taps your wrist, me, and you rise, steadier than when you crouched. The sea keeps talking behind you, not offended that you're leaving, only relieved you understood how to listen without needing to take anything home but the listening. On the way back under the veranda, you match your breath to the slow ooh that lives in the corridor. And for the first time, you feel yourself not as a visitor earning approval, but as a small, polite sentence the cave is happy to include in its paragraph of evening. Your pocket stone gives one last warm nod. Lesson received. Filed. Ready to be reread whenever the air smells like salt and patience. The corridor breathes you into a room where the ceiling lowers affectionately and warmth gathers in polite pockets around the lamps. Stone tables squat like friendly seals, surfaces rubbed to satin by 1,000 elbows and twice as many stories. Along one wall, a shallow trench of snow waits beside a nest of black river stones that glint like patient embers. Kitchen, the cloak artist says, with the same pride people use for children and good dogs. Your pocket stone approves, suddenly convinced it has famous cousins. The elder loosens her rope and lays it in a circle, the way you might set a boundary around joy so it doesn't wander off too quickly. At her nod, hands move in quiet choreography. Someone stirs lamp oil to wake its sweetness. Someone else rinses kelp straps in warm water until their edges relax like forgiving eyebrows. Another piles berries, crow, bear, a shy handful of cloud from a seal hide pouch, their skins winking like tiny planets. You remember the market's arithmetic of kindness and feel it repeat here, measured not in pebbles but in steam. Stone steaming begins with a conversation, because that is what heat likes best. The young hunter rolls a river stone between his palms, testing its mood. He lays it in the hearth until the lamp flames whisper yes, then lifts it with forked caribou prongs and drops it into the snow trench. The snow gasps and becomes good news. Another stone follows, then a third. Each receives a quick thanks with a mittened knuckle, and you find yourself murmuring gratitude to a rock, which is a perfect indicator that your day has improved dramatically. Fish, thin fillets, arrive like tidy paragraphs on a slate. The cloak artist brushes them with a gloss of oil filtered through snow so it will burn without bitterness. She lays the fillets onto kelp straps, sprinkles crushed spruce tips that smell like green lightning, then folds everything into neat packages tied with braided moss. Small gifts, she says. The bundles slide onto a lattice of willow twigs balanced over the trench, then a blanket of fresh snow covers the lot. When another hot stone dives into the white, steam rises with the sigh of a contented kettle that remembers not to be bullied. Etiquette appears in the quiet margins. You learn seating by lamp height. Elders where the light sits calmest, children where flickers teach patience.
You are placed between the young hunter and the comb-haired grandmother with driftwood gaze. You suspect this is the safety aisle. The bone flute rests on a shelf, not banished, merely allowed to watch. Voices match the flames, low, steady, amused by their own restraint. When someone laughs, it arrives like a lantern tilt, warm and brief, and the room smooths its rough again. The elder sets a soapstone kettle on a flat of heated rock and adds a pinch of seaweed, a curl of kelp ribbon, a ghost of onion, 3 snowberries for sweetness and memory, and the smallest sliver of fish to teach the water what's expected. She hums to the kettle, because of course she does. You hum too, the long "oh, oh, oh" you borrowed from the corridor, and the kettle seems to stand up straighter under the attention. Burn like a patient teacher, someone blesses the lamps while trimming wicks, and the flames answer by behaving exactly like tenure. When the snow blanket lifts, the room pauses for the scent. Kelp's seaside perfume, fish turning tender, spruce brightening the air like a tidy sermon preached to no one in particular. The young hunter hands you tongs carved from antler. Steam favors steady hands, he says. Your city fingers, overachievers normally, manage a respectable stillness. You place a bundle onto a reed mat. It leaks an encouraging drop that sizzles on your sleeve and then thinks better of it. Dishes move in a round, never a line. A bowl lands in your hands only to leave them for a neighbor who gives you an approving shoulder tap. Here, pace, me. You learn the pass and bless. A thumb pressed to the rim for warmth, a small breath over the surface, warming on the way, and a quiet wish that the next mouth finds exactly as much as it needs. The wish is rarely voiced. It travels better by steam. Your first bite surprises you into reverence. The fish yields with the soft punctuation of a story finally finding its last sentence. Kelp tastes like a summer tide caught in a good mood. Spruce leans in with Spruce's particular advice. Stand tall, but don't poke anyone. And the moss tie leaves a whisper of forest. Berries arrive in a carved spoon, tart, bright, almost prankish, then suddenly thoughtful. We like supper to have plot twists, the grandmother says, and you almost clap, but the lamps gently edit that impulse down to a smaller smile. Table manners extend to stories. Everyone adds a thread, no one drops a rope. A cousin describes a rookery seen under moonlight, pups snoozing like commas in a paragraph of rock. A child tells a one-sentence epic about slipping on silk ice and being caught by a snowdrift with excellent manners. The cloak artist shares a recipe: how to coax sweetness from kelp ribs by letting them remember sunlight in warm water. You offer a city memory: coffee that tasted like metal and lightning at 4 a.m. And the room listens, then wraps your story in kelp and hands it back kinder. You notice how gratitude lands, not with speeches, but with adjustments. A bowl shifts closer to cold hands, a mat is nudged under tired knees. Someone refills your cup before you consider asking, which is somehow better than refilling it after you ask. We try to read the map on a face the way we read aurora in ice, the elder says, and everyone nods because the metaphor is obvious here. Kindness is a navigation skill. Mid-meal, the wind outside changes key again, a little higher, a little curious. The dome hears it and lowers its voice in response. The young hunter listens with the same side of the head attention you saw at the tide. Maybe snow later, he says to your sleeve, which now apparently accepts weather briefings. We steam extra, the cloak artist decides. More bundles descend to the lattice, snow blankets, stones dive like seasoned actors nailing their cue. Blessings float like steam between bites. Before lamplight trimming, Fire, mind your temper, we've had a long day. Passing berries, keep our mouths honest. Lifting a stone, remember you were river once. You adopt one, soft, private, yours, and test it on your pocket stone that warms like a seal after a good nap. The elder catches your satisfied exhale and without looking up, slides half her berry spoon into your bowl. For your new habit, she says. The last of the kettle pours like a patient tide, and the silhouettes of spoons become small moons against lamp halos. Dishes wash themselves in snow and conversation. No one is assigned, everyone simply moves, the way Arona moves when the sky clears its throat and decides to be interesting for a while. You wipe a reed mat with the clean vanity of someone who has discovered they enjoy chores when they aren't being measured. Supper ends not with an announcement, but with a chorus of settled shoulders. The elder ties her rope again and touches your wrist 3 times. Here, pace, me. Though you hardly need reminding now. The bone flute receives a fond pat, but remains on its shelf. Its night will come. You release one last ribbon of breath sideways into the warm room so it can join the others on their easy drift toward the moon hole. In the corridor, you think you hear the long "oh, oh, oh" pick up your new, kelp-scented calm and carry it forward. A line of steam written into green light. Another small map the sanctuary will keep for when you circle back hungry. Which you will, because kindness, like supper, prefers to be a recurring event.
The corridor carries supper's warmth like a secret in its sleeve, and opens into a chamber that breathes night. The roof seam widens here, a gentle mouth where the sky leans down to listen. Green fire sways in layered ribbons as if the aurora were practicing its soft handwriting for a patient audience. Lamps nestle along the walls, their halos overlapping like friendly circles on a map. You feel the mood before you name it, a festival tone, hushed and happy, as if the whole sanctuary had decided to speak in lullabies that tap their feet. At the threshold, door manners first. A bow to keep warmth from sprinting outdoors, a shoulder turn so the ruff guards your breath, a pause to let the room introduce itself. The cloak artist touches your sleeve and lifts a tiny soot tin, the polite kind harvested from lamp chimneys and sifted through moss until it turns to velvet. Festival marks, she says, and with 2 fingertip taps on your cheek, she places a pair of small dots. Guest and welcome. She draws a thin crescent just above your brow. Safe return. On your boot tips, she paints a braided line. Walk like a rope, steady, companionable. Your lamp-compatible smile behaves itself. Drums are already speaking, but they do it with felted mallets that turn sound into a heartbeat you can wear under your coat. The rhythm is not a march and not a dance. It is a quiet footpath of sound where everyone can stroll without bumping elbows. Children dip thumb pads in soot and stamp little ovals along the ice, a constellation of quiet footprints that becomes tonight's path. Each oval faces the same direction, angled kindly to encourage short steps and patient ankles. The floor, flattered by such consideration, answers with a silk gloss yes. You are handed the festival banner, mended as promised, with stitches neat as lullaby verses. It hangs from a willow pole, seal-hide panels dyed with berry, kelp, and soot into images the lamps understand.
2 lamps, a rope, a kettle, a sleeping dog, a door, the order of kindness urged into color. The young hunter shows you the procession's breath, 3 long O's for lift, 1 small inhale for the turn. No hurry, he says, tapping your wrist. Here, pace, me, and your ribs obey like doors oiled with tea steam. The line begins. In front, an elder carries a lamp cupped in both hands as if warming a small bird. Behind you, a child holds a basket of wicks, moss plumes arranged like quiet bouquets. Every 20 steps, someone plants a wick in a lamp and trims a tiny flourish from its braid. The flames answer with good manners. Drums pad beside you, never climbing above conversation level. The bone flute is shy at first. 2 moth notes orient the room, then threads a thin melody between drum heart steps, so the air has something gentle to hum. Suit patterns bloom. Faces gather constellations. 3 dots at the temple for I listen, a small streak near the ear for I bring stories back, a ring on the thumb for useful hands. Kids decorate boot soles with crescent smudges that print moon phases as they walk. The shapes remind everyone to step softly, to favor the ball of the foot over the heel. On a smooth patch of ice, 2 cousins draw an aurora with soot and a damp finger, then sweep it clean with a sealhide brush so the picture can be drawn again by the next pair of hands. Our best art likes to sleep and start over, the grandmother murmurs, and several lamps nod. A long table of soapstone and driftwood hosts the carving exchange. The carver from the market has arranged small blanks of stone, bone, and antler, each with a hole ready for cord. The rule is sweet. Carve something you wish for the person behind you in line. No names, no trades. Just gifts that move backward through the procession like warm weather traveling by rumor. You square a piece of soapstone in your mitten and cut a tiny braid, a safe return charm, simple as breath. When you pass it back, your hand meets a stranger's, gloved sure, and a seal-shaped token arrives in your palm, its back rubbed satin by generous pockets. The token's expression is both unimpressed and loving, like a seal deciding your story is fine but could use fewer adjectives. The procession enters a narrower gallery where the ceiling leans low to remind even tall minds to be humble. Drum steps soften further. The mallets become hands, hands become feet, feet become whispers. Here the path splits around a sleeping dog, carved from snow, eyes closed, tongue peeking in its own dream of fish, and everyone honors the house rule, never step over sleep. You go around, raising the banner only enough to avoid brushing a whisker of snow. The dog doesn't stir. Its dreams deserve to finish their sentence. The cloak artist tucks a lantern into a niche and invites you to try scatter steps, a festival game disguised as practice. You follow a spray of soot commas across the floor, heel barely kissing down, toes singing hush, and the ice answers with satisfied quiet. A child gleefully misreads the commas and skates a giggle.
Three adults immediately become gentle railings, steering all that joy away from lamps with open hands. The giggle survives intact. No flame feels scolded. Respect, alive and nimble. Midway, a little problem arrives, just enough plot to keep the night awake. The banner's bottom corner catches on a reed mat and tugs your grip. The pole pitches, your heart throws elbows, your breath forgets its grammar. Before panic drafts a speech, the rope caps your wrist twice, careful, and the young hunter's palm settles at the balance point of the pole. You match his 3 count, here, pace, me, and the pole rights itself. The banner sighs as if pleased to have survived a story, and a drum places a soft boom like a period after a sentence that tried to run on. Behind you, an unseen hand squeezes your shoulder in approval. Crisis, edited. At the chamber's widest point, the aurora folds and unfolds as if the sky were practicing origami. The drummer rests her mallets. The flute sketches 2 notes that curl like steam. Everyone sets a small carving at their feet and takes one from the person beside them. Left becomes right, right becomes left, until gifts belong to strangers who somehow fit them perfectly. Your seal token pairs itself with a tiny kelp spiral. Together, they feel like shoreline and tide making a private joke. Keep both, the elder says. We like our metaphors matched. Soot becomes writing and then vanishes. A young cousin draws 3 footprints leading to a drawn door, then erases the door with a single breath, so the footprints become a path to nothing, which someone else immediately turns into a fish by adding a single dot. Laughter arrives, brief and lamp safe. The drums resume now, slower, 2 soft heartbeats and a rest, while the flute plays the 2-note home sign, shy and sure. The line of quiet footprints curves toward the room's first lamp, then dissolves on purpose, each oval brushed away with a seal-hide sweep so the floor can go to sleep clean. As the festival folds itself small, blessings rise like steam. Walk where your breath remembers. Let your pockets carry good weather. Burn like a patient teacher. Someone ties your new tokens to your braid charm so they clink faintly like small, polite bells. The young hunter smears the last soot dot on your mitten, a tiny star, and leans close. For luck, he says, and for tomorrow. The word tomorrow lands with the weight of weather practicing a speech that will be delivered soon, but not yet. Lamps bow, drums put away their hearts, and the aurora tucks its green into the seam as if smoothing blankets over the sky. You bow to the door and follow the rope's warm grammar. Here, pace, me. Back into the corridor where your soft steps borrow the festival's hush and carry it forward like a song you aren't finished humming. The corridor changes its mind about quiet the way a cat changes its mind about laps, politely but firmly. A new wind threads the seam above, a thin reed note that wasn't there a moment ago. You feel it first as a small, insistent finger tracing the fur around your hood, and then as a taste. That metallic maybe you learned at the tide edge, the kind that says weather is walking toward you with its coat unbuttoned. The elder pauses mid-step, lifts her lamp, and listens with her cheek instead of her ear. The flame leans, not in fear, merely in etiquette, making space for air that has business. Wind ferns along the wall, which spent the evening politely pointing toward festival music, have turned all at once, gossiping in a new direction. The cloak artist taps the frost with one midden, and the pattern answers like a flock wheeling. Squall, she says, not grim, just accurate. The young hunter tests the air with his breath, exhaling sideways in the approved manner. His rope taps your wrist. Here, pace, me, and you echo the touch back. Here, pace, me, yes. Word travels the way it prefers to travel here. Through hands and eyebrows, through lamps that brighten by a courteous thread, through a flute's moth-soft note that says, attention without saying alarm. In the kitchen room, the last of the steam tucks itself into kettles. In the house of songs, blankets pull closer to shoulders. At the market, toggles and charms receive an extra pat as if promises like a little reassurance before weather tries its plot twist. You taste the air again. It carries distance the way a good story carries an ending. Not here yet, but coming. The elder leads you to a veranda crack where the ice keeps an eye on the sea. Outside, horizon has elbowed itself into a white curtain, low and rolling, the kind of squall that mistakes the world for paper and tries to erase it. The aurora still writes its green, but swiftly, as if the sky-decided cursive would be more efficient. Somewhere beyond the curtain, an ice field complains, a long arthritic music, a choir of doors remembering every winter they ever opened. Someone arrives at a gentle half-run that would never jostle a lamp. He is a drummer's nephew, one of the scouts who trace thresholds when weather clears its throat. Even his breath bows as he speaks. 2 out, back line nearly home. 1 turned for the mending path. The other went to check the groaning field. 200 steps, no reply to flute. He touches 2 fingers to his temple where soot marks say, I listen. His eyes are steady the way a good knot is steady. The elder does not let the room borrow panic from the wind. She tips her chin at the young hunter, who answers with the rope's grammar. 3 quick touches for plan forming, a slow pull that gathers attention. Breath, she says. And everyone inhales in tidy unison as if the sanctuary itself were choosing to stay calm. Warmth. Mittens are checked, hoods nested, pocket stones turned so their summer faces meet palms. Respect, which here means respect for the squall's humor, respect for the ice's grievances, respect for a scout who knows both and is overdue. A kid appears from the market wall, ready by habit, sealskin line, doubled and then tripled, a bundle of reed flares that burn shy and low, green as the sky for close talk and bad sight, a horn to carry kettle broth that understands its job. The cloak artist flips a strap, and the kit unfolds like a sentence with good commas. You lift the horn, its heat a sober kindness, and the elder lets you keep it. You pour, she says. Tea is navigation. Search manners take shape the way a festival path took shape, measured, repeatable. Teams of 2 and 3. Flute calls in pairs only so no one mistakes courage for shouting. Soot marks at each junction no taller than a child's wrist so ropes glide. No stepping over sleep, even now. Snow dogs and real ones need the dignity of finishing their dream. No heroic sprints. Heroic sprints are accidents practicing their handwriting. At the door, the storm pushes its ear against the crack, curious. Lamps receive small hoods so their flames won't gossip with the wind. The drummer's nephew produces a thin cone carved from horn and fits it over a lamp.
Now the light becomes a narrow, obedient column, a whispering spear that minds its manners. White mouth, meaning white out. We shorten the world and lengthen the rope. He places your glove on the line so it can memorize the braid's polite texture. Your palm answers with a yes that reaches all the way to your shoulder blades. The elder sends 2 teams to trace the known edges. You and the young hunter go with her. The cloak artist partners the drummer's nephew. Behind, the grandmother tucks extra wicks into the wall niches at eye height, future breadcrumbs that don't melt. She hums to the lamplight perks like a good student. Out under the veranda, the squall introduces itself with a handful of rice. Snow streams sideways in disciplined lines. The sea's voice reduces to the slip and breath of something being polite under stress. You keep your breath small, the long O shaped for corridor listening rather than surf. The rope touches your wrist. Keep. Your mitten answers with a small squeeze. Wind tries to improvise. You respond by sticking to the script. You find the place where the groaning field tells its diary. The sound is broad and wooden, a choir of old ships, unhappy but within their rights. Surface snow here swirls in knotted patterns the way steam from supper curled around stories. The elder stops just short of the worst complaint and listens for the tone beneath the scold. Young ice, she judges, then points with her chin at a safer shoulder, a darker band. The young hunter tests with his heel, writes a note on the snow with 3 calm steps, and you tip your breath in that direction, trusting the sentence. Flute calls sound behind you, then ahead. Nothing aloud, only a moth-close 2-note question passed along the corridor bones. From somewhere in the white, not far and not near, a reply tries to happen and doesn't. Wind edits it into a rumor. The elder lifts her lamp cone and cups its light. You pour a coin of broth into the lid and hold it up so the steam can introduce your team to the world. We travel with our kitchen, the cloak artist said earlier. You believe her now. The steam smells like spruce and fish, and the idea of friends arriving. A glove print appears where the wind lay down, half erased, traveling toward the wrong kind of sound. The print is small. It belongs to confidence in a fast mood. The rope taps your wrist twice. Careful. You reduce your stride from step to syllable. The young hunter points with his breath toward a darker smudge, the kind a knee makes when pride stops to renegotiate. Something moves in the white, then stills, then moves again, not in panic, but in the deliberate way a person remembers their training mid-scare, and decides to have a future. The elder tilts the lamp. You lift the broth. The young hunter gives the rope a single slow pull. Back to me now, please. And the white answers with a shape that is human-shaped when the wind permits. A hood, rough frosted. A face, soot crescent for safe return smudged long by weather. A hand, gloved, sheepish, raised with a little circle on the sleeve. All well, mostly maybe. The squall chooses that moment to clear its throat louder, trying to negotiate for drama. And the ice field, never one to miss a chance at harmony, groans with such theatrical sincerity that your pocket stone-lodged courage slips a bit and needs reminding. Breath, the elder says not to the scout, but to you. You obey. The world grows back into focus the way a lamp grows back after trimming. The scout leans toward the line. He has made a small, correct decision. He has stopped moving forward. He has also made a small, forgivable mistake. He came alone to listen to a complaint that wanted an audience.
The wind tries to shove your exhale out of shape. You hug it close and give it to the side instead. On my 3, the young hunter murmurs, already counting with his fingers against the line. Your job is simple, important. Keep the broth exactly here, a small harbor for a person arriving. Behind you, another team's cone light blooms like a second moon. The flute breathes the 2-note foam sign. You do not rush. You do not shout. You make your hands into a lamp for someone else's courage. The squall can have the horizon. It does not get the rope.
On the young hunter's 3, the rope gives its slow pull. Back to me now, please. And the white becomes a person inside your circle of steam. The scout's mittens close on the line with the relief of hands remembering their first language. You tip the broth toward his lip slit, and the smell alone, spruce, fish, a polite onion, returns a little color to his voice. Humbled, he mutters, which is both diagnosis and medicine here. The storm clears its throat again, unsatisfied with the lack of drama, but you and the rope ignore it with exquisite manners. The elder angles the lamp cone toward a mouth of shadow that you didn't notice on the way out, a low seam tucked under the veranda's rib. Singing corridor, she says, chin points small as a wick trim. We let the cave carry us. Inside, wind becomes a rumor outside the door. The ice takes over the conversation with its velvet vowel, the long ooh that smooths thought. Your breath joins it, a steady companion. The scout's shoulders, which had been auditioning for a tragedy, retire from the role, embarrassed. Marks gather like old friends at a warm table. Here, 3 dimples for keep left of the green. There, soot freckles where someone stood long enough to season the air. Your mitten finds the shallow groove that reassures rather than commands. The young hunter gives 2 moth notes on the bone flute, and the ceiling seam answers by tightening its aurora thread along the true path. A thin river of green, pleased to be useful. Sky inside, he says, and the scout nods, chastened, reading the wall the way he should have before bravado rented his legs. At the first branch, wind ferns leaned like listeners. Their fronds tilt toward a wider chamber, and your glove hovers, not touching. Respect stays awake even when relief sleepwalks. You lift the cone and send the lamps whispered down one tunnel, then the other. One swallow of light returns smelling of seal oil and slate dust, the market's corner of charms and sharpeners. The other returns with a shy sweetness, berry on breath, the house of songs nestling its blankets. Different rights, neither wrong. The elder chooses the third way, a notch at child's wrist height, the breadcrumb wick niche brightening with a fresh wick the grandmother must have set minutes ago. You bow to the wick because it is doing an adult's job without complaint, and follow its little lighthouse onward. Echo becomes instrument. The young hunter teaches you how to throw your exhale softly at a wall. Never a shout, only a curled note, and listen for the room's reply. One room answers fat and low, promising good floor for sled runners later. Another answers thin and quick, excited by its own ceiling. That way asks for bent heads and patience. You pick the fat reply. The elder's lamp approves with a slightly deeper glow, as if oil recognizes its favorite sentence structure. Halfway through a long corridor, the rope writes a small question on your wrist. Keep? And the elder answers by stopping so gently that your momentum hears yes before your boots do. Second scout, she breathes. If the first took a wrong interest in the groaning field, the second, the mender, likely turned inward along the repair route. Good instincts, bad timing. The cloak artist feels the floor with her palm, a lacquered gloss where many sleds have hesitated. She traces 2 quick ripples, edge ahead, and taps them out with her mittens so they won't confuse someone arriving later. The corridor sings a slightly different vowel. Smaller, curious. You match it, breath narrowing until it travels like a polite fox along the wall. Scent becomes compass. Someone has been warming glue, fish skin, and patience down one side path. The air carries a shy tang of resin and boiled story. Another branch smells like old fur and new laughter, the aftertaste of a festival flag just mended. You follow the glue because glue means needles, and needles mean mending hands who would never waste their thread in a squall if they could help it. T is navigation, you remember. And unstopper the horn a finger's width so Spruce Breath walks ahead of you like a friendly scout. The flute calls in pairs only. No bravado here, just twin notes released with the modesty of moths. Far off, the corridor tosses back something the shape of a human reply, torn thin by turns. The young hunter doesn't chase it. He draws it closer with time, sounding the 2 notes at each junction, waiting for the wall to choose the path where the echo returns heavier, kinder. The aurora seam above obliges by pooling a little greener when the world ahead is wider, thinning to a hair when the ceiling leans down to test your courtesy. You discover you can read this now without translation. Wide, breathe. Narrow, breathe smaller. At a low arch, the ice keeps a ledger of scuffs at knee height, places where busy people forgot to bow and the house forgave them anyway. You touch one, her mitten a blessing for old haste. She says, "We all hurry once," the once carrying both warning and forgiveness. You make a quiet vow to hurry less extravagantly in the future, perhaps starting with your thoughts. The corridor opens into a pocket of warmer silence, lamp heat saved by good design and thrift. On the floor, someone drew the order of kindness as a map. Kettle, fish, rope, lamps, berries, dog, door. A smear of glue darkens the rope icon. Beside it, a small fold of binding strip curls like a leaf that has decided not to be used. The cloak artist smiles into her hood. "Near," she whispers, and your pocket stone performs an undignified wiggle of agreement. 2 notes. This time the answer is confident, tidy, and close enough that your wrist feels it before your ear does. You lower the lamp cone and see him, the mender, sitting where a patient person sits when the world auditions for danger and is told to come back later. His soot marks are undisturbed, his breath is quiet and sideways. A loop of sealskin lies across his mitten in the approved manner. He is not lost. He is waiting for the rope to finish its sentence. "Good," the elder says, and the word lands on his shoulder like a blanket that weighs exactly enough. You do not congratulate him loudly. You offer the horn lid with its small harbor of tea. He warms his cheeks over the steam before he drinks, a lesson carried out even now. The young hunter signs a quick apology to the wall for taking up extra attention, then ties the mender's line into yours with a knot that looks like a friendly handshake. The flute breathes the 2-note home sign. From 3 corridors away, lightly, someone answers. Another team placing a wick, perhaps, or the grandmother humming to her line of little lighthouses. The cave takes all these small songs and arranges them into a map you can hear with your ribs. You set out, not hastily. The elder asks the aurora for its grammar, and the seam supplies adjectives. Bright for junctions, even for long steadies, a staccato flicker where drips lace the floor and socks prefer caution. The mender adds his nose to the work, calling out the faint caramel of overwarmed glue from hours ago, the sweet mineral of scraped soapstone, the nut-soft breath of lamps trimmed recently. You realize the sanctuary has 1,000 ways to say "this way," each polite, none pushy. At the child's wrist height niche you bowed to earlier, the wick you saluted burns lower but steady. Someone else has passed and pinched it a fraction taller with cold fingers. You repay the favor, thumb and forefinger trimming the braid. The flame thanks you by behaving even better. The scout you first brought in touches the wall where 3 dimples say "keep left of the green," and his glove, newly humble, finds the groove as if it had been waiting for him particularly. You can almost hear the corridor accept his apology. The last bend before the wide gallery offers its usual trick, an echo that pretends the right-hand path is shorter because it likes the sound of its own ceiling. You do not fall for it. The elder throws her breath gently left. The echo comes home with the weight of floor that will welcome a sled. "We leave the faintest line we can," she says, running her mitten along the polished rail of history. "And we trust the ice to keep only what helps." The aurora pools bright ahead, a green saucer where 3 roots meet, and the world opens like careful hands. You pause there long enough to listen. Far down the marketway, toggles click and then politely stop. From the house of songs, a child's 2 tangled notes startle into correctness, lifted by a flute that knows how to cup a tune. Behind you, the white mouth at the door chews on its own bluster. Here, in the singing corridors, the map hums under your skin. 2 scouts, 1 lesson, 3 ropes, many small obediences. You raise the cone and pour a little steam upward, a thank you written in warmth. The cave, pleased, sends your breath ahead like a lantern, and the rope, utterly content with its grammar, taps your wrist. Here, pace, me, as you turn toward home, knowing that the next part belongs to sleds, braid, and the village's calm choreography of welcome.
The aurora saucer glows above the junction, like a green bowl set out to catch good luck, and you feel the village's patience meeting you there, steady as lamp oil. "Sleds," the elder says, and the word arrives with a soft clack of runners from a nook you hadn't noticed. 2 chromatic-style pull sleds nested like tidy thoughts. Braided sealskin ropes coil on their crossbars, their plates shining faintly where many mittens have taught them good behavior. The young hunter runs his glove along one braid, and it answers with a small, confident lay against his palm, as if to say, "I remember how to be useful." Rope manners first, because nothing with edges moves here before grammar. The cloak artist lays the main line across your mitten, not to weigh you down, but to teach your hand the difference between asking and telling. 3 voices, she reminds: pull, companion, apology. And you smile because the lesson already lives in your wrist. She shows you the midline knot, the friendly handshake that has no elbows, then the soft stopper that prevents excitement from becoming argument. When she ties the mender's line into the train, she taps each knot as if greeting old neighbors. "We lash stories, not cargo," she says. "Stories prefer diagonals." The scout you first found stands beside the sled and practices humble, which fits better than bravado ever did. He strokes a runner with 2 fingers and murmurs a sorry to the floor he misunderstood. The elder nods satisfaction and places a reed flare in his mitten, green fire bound and modest. If sight narrows, she says, you light, you breathe, and you wait for company to finish its sentence. He tucks the flare where his pocket stone can supervise. Loading happens the way supper happened, round, not line. The horn goes into a fur pocket where it can be a harbor on demand. Spare wicks and a cone-hooded lamp ride low. The lamp is amused by assignments and behaves. The mender, who has the calm of thread and glue in his bones, takes the rear sled's tiller where patience is an instrument. The young hunter, front left, adopts the rope's steady grammar. You take front right, breath already matched to the long ooh that smooths thought into useful wool. The cloak artist tucks a short safety line from your belt to the sled's side. Polite redundancy, the best kind. The first pull is not a heave. It is an invitation. The runners, polished by many winters, accept, with a whispered scribe across the ice. Wind, leaning at the door like an uninvited opinion, tries to draft your posture into panic. Your shoulders politely decline. The elder sets the cadence. 3 soft steps, a breath, a listen. Lamps in their cone hoods keep their light close, whispers of gold that refrain from arguing with the green overhead. Each junction offers its test. Echo pretending it has better ideas, frost fern suggesting a gossip-worthy turn, and each time a child's wrist-high wick, a soot freckle, or the wall's velvet vowel confirms the route you already half knew. At a tight bend, the floor shows lacquer gloss where sled runners once hissed bravely and regretted it. The mender hums a stitcher's rhythm, and the team shortens stride to little heel kisses, toes asking permission. Your rope taps, careful, and you answer by rolling your breath sideways so the world hears calm instead of confidence. The bend passes without incident. The sled, flattered, behaves like a guest who knows when to stop telling stories about itself. You enter a corridor that likes to sing. The young hunter gives the moth-soft 2-note home sign. The roof seam gathers a little more green, as if the aurora wanted to come along. Underfoot, the polished rail you learned to read earlier assists without showing off. Far ahead, a cone-hood globe blooms and then hides. A second team setting a breadcrumb wick, then moving on with tidy modesty. The rope across your wrist becomes a sentence with punctuation you trust. Here, pace, me. When the storm puffs its cheeks and attempts italics, the rope keeps to its font. A small snag, because all stories love one, arrives at the place where drift collects in scallops. A runner noses into a soft lip and pretends to be stuck. No one yanks, no one lectures. The elder kneels, pats the drift like a sleepy dog. Never step over sleep. And then levers the nose a hand width while the mender loosens the diagonal lashing by a single polite breath. The sled considers the respect it has received and frees itself, theatrically unamused. You can feel your city instincts blush and take notes. Tea is navigation, so is gratitude. At the next wick niche, you stop long enough for 3 sips to make their small harbors. One for the scout, one's for everyone else, one poured onto the floor in thanks. Steam rising to write a thank you on the wall that needs no vowels. The cloak artist rebraids a short section of line that tried to audition for fray.
Her fingers talk it out of its ambitions and back into service. "Burn like a patient teacher," she tells the lamp while trimming its wick, and the flame agrees by being even more itself. Voices begin to exist again. Not music, just the sound of people within earshot of relief. From the marketway comes a polite toggling, then silence, as if hooks wanted to clap but remembered the lamps. From the house of songs, two notes assemble into a lullaby and then stand at attention. The flute knows when the hall prefers listening to arrival. The aurora seam widens into that green saucer over the main gallery. You slow without being told. The rope's touch becomes punctuation for celebration rather than caution. Door manners at the threshold, even now. Bow to keep warmth in. Shoulder turn to guard breath. Pause for the room to say hello. The house receives you like good news spoken in a calm voice. People do not run, they arrive. Hands rise not to snatch, but to steady. The scout steps off first and places his palm on the wall where three dimples say, "Keep left of the green." "Apology on time," the elder murmurs, and allows herself the smallest lamp-compatible smile. The market keeper appears with a bowl of warm broth that tastes like every earlier kindness arguing gently to be listed first. A child with a basket of wicks offers you one for later, because later always exists here, and planning for it is a form of affection. The ledger rope by the storyteller receives two new knots, twin promises tied with mitten precision. We went, we returned, we will go again the right way. The old rope approves, its pairs clinking like small bells in a temple that prefers outside voices to stay outside. Sleds get their part of the ceremony too. Runners are wiped with snow and gratitude. Lines are coiled so the braids can rest without forgetting their lessons. The reed flares, unspent, are counted home and kissed by lamp smoke so they won't feel useless. Someone hangs the cone hood lamp on a peg, and it sits there like a teacher pleasantly surprised that everyone did their homework without reminders. Calm is an act here, not an accident. The kitchen room breathes hotter, knowing late tea is medicine and not a habit. The house of songs lays extra reed mats where knees remember the squall. The festival soot tin opens once more, and the cloak artist redraws the small crescent above the scout's brow. Safe return, freshened against tomorrow's weather. The elder takes the bone flute from its shelf and plays the two-note home sign in a voice so quiet that even the lamps lean to hear. The note turns the room into one giant exhale. You notice what your body does with safety. Jaw unclenches, shoulders melt an inch, toes rediscover how to be toes rather than representatives for your entire personality. Your pocket stone stops being heroic and becomes warm and slightly silly, which is the best form of heroism after night work. The rope taps your wrist a last time, not instruction, just affection, and you press your mitten to it in reply. Here, pace, me, we are all home. Before anyone speaks a summary, the elder trims the lamp wicks, a ceremonial tidy-up that edits it right into its final draft. Respect, she says, for the last time this evening, and everyone hears the full paragraph. Respect for ice that sings, for wind that practices drama, for ropes that speak politely, for sleds that prefer being asked,
for scouts that learn, for kitchens that navigate, for maps that are made of breath and green fire and small good habits. The storm, already bored with being the main character, wanders off to lecture the horizon. In its place, the old quiet returns, well-tailored and kind. The sanctuary stretches like a cat on a warm mat. You feel the room put away its worry and pick up its drowsiness instead. And you let that drowsiness try on your shoulders for size.
Night folds itself neatly and tucks the last green ribbon back into the seam, leaving a pale hush that smells like clean snow and lamp smoke. Your breath keeps the corridor's long ooh out of habit now, and the lamps dim themselves to a courteous simmer as the world prepares a slower kind of brightness. Wind ferns, chatty earlier, grow thoughtful, and all lean the same direction, as if listening for a rumor of light. The elder's lamp writes a small circle on the wall. "Order of kindness," she says, and you mirror the gesture with your mitten, the way a visitor mirrors bow and cup in small silence. The veranda returns you to the sea, which has decided to sleep with one eye open. A thin mist lies on the water like silk pulled across a lap, and every ripple looks ironed. The horizon, recently so dramatic, now acts bashful, showing only a pale seam between water and the part of sky that hasn't learned color yet. The young hunter laces his breath sideways so it leaves no footprints on the morning. The cloak artist sets a reed mat where your knees will go and lays a smooth black stone on top, sun-stored from yesterday, warm as a remembered joke. Gratitude happens before anything else, because this coast prefers thank you to appetite. The horn lid becomes a little altar of steam. You pour 3 coins of heat, one to the ice for its patient spine, one to wind for practicing humility, one to water for keeping secrets and then returning them when asked kindly. The elder touches the rim with a knuckle. "Order of kindness," she reminds. "Kettle, fish, rope, lamps, berries, dog, door." And the list fits the morning like a good mitten, every finger accounted for. Dawn lines look like gentleness doing its job. The mender hands you a coil the color of seal shadow, thin enough to listen, strong enough to escort breakfast home without argument. Hooks carved from bones sit in a driftwood bowl, barbless crescents polished like modest moons. "We ask," he says, "never grab." A tiny bundle of bait, fish belly, pale and honest, waits beside a dish of crushed kelp. Into a brine the elder drops a pinch of spruce tips. Even bait gets a blessing here. Even breakfast deserves a good story. You work at a low hole you learned last night by smell and light. The second oval, whisker-kissed, very slightly to the left of its impatient cousin. The cloak artist shows you quiet fingers, mitten pinched like a beak, hook tucked without showmanship, line laid, not thrown. The first lowering is a breath length. Down, pause, a tap of your pulse, up. And you feel the water answer, not with hunger, but with curiosity. "We court the sea," she says, amused. You aim for a suitor's posture, attentive, unneedy. Silver slides beneath the hole and becomes a fish only when light remembers how to be reflected. A small cod, patient as a good paragraph, tests the bait and then writes its name onto the line. Your wrist learns a new grammar. Lift without declaration, release slack like a compliment, steady as a rope that knows its job. When the fish arrives, its gaze is a question you do not have to answer loudly. The young hunter cups it in a wet glove, thanks the water, returns the smallest, keeps the middling. We like future breakfasts more than crowded mornings, he whispers. The sea approves by smoothing its silk again. Along the veranda, other lines find their punctuation. No one counts loud, but bowls fill the way bowls prefer, slowly, reasonably, without envy. A child catches nothing and is congratulated for practicing patience at a professional level. The mender hooks his line on his boot to rest it, cuts a curl of kelp with a shy smile, and tells the floor it has done admirable work all night. The floor, flattered, shines a little. When the light lifts enough to make blue honest, breakfast returns inland by polite sled. Runners complain in happy whispers. Ropes remember how to be companions. In the kitchen room, the kettle does not need to be sung to. Someone hums anyway. Fish steams over stones with the same grace supper taught you, only brighter. Kelp glistens like ink drying. Berries sit like gossiping stars in a wooden bowl. The elder ladles broth that tastes like daybreak teaching itself to speak. Burn like a patient teacher, someone tells a lamp, trimming its wick. The flame blushes and behaves. The gratitude ritual continues with hands. Palms brush over tools to thank them for knowing their jobs. Bone hooks receive a stroke, the knife a nod. The reed mat a smooth, the moss-waked basket a pat like you'd give a well-meaning dog that remembered not to chase lamps. The ledger rope near the storyteller accepts morning knots, not new promises, but acknowledgments. Kept, kept, kept. Tied in twos that sit together like cups after tea. The grandmother snips a fray from the rope's end and hums a note that straightens all the anxious threads in your chest. You walk a last market loop while stalls yawn into daylight. The bone worker offers to sharpen the hook you never dulled. For the story, he says, and slides it across slate until it gleams. The soapstone carver brings out a small thing she carved last night, a seal with a kelp spiral etched on its back. The two tokens you received, married into one little certainty. Tied with a memory, she calls it, and ties it to your braid charm. Safe return, but fancy. You pay the only way allowed, palm held up so the air can take your gratitude and file it with the steam. The drums sleep. The flute watches with its well-behaved silence. The festival soot tin closes, lids tucked like eyelids. Soot dots on faces fade to faint smudges. Only the crescent above your brow remains, refreshed by a thumb that smells like lamp oil and berries. You don't need many marks, the cloak artist says. You carry your weather now. Your pocket stone feels smug enough to be thrown out of polite company, so you hide it in your glove where moderation can scold it gently. Farewell is not sudden, not here. It prepares itself in plain sight, setting chairs straight, smoothing mats, making sure the house won't miss you too sharply all at once. The elder checks the bone flute's mouth with her mitten and sets it in a niche where it can watch your exit without needing to narrate itself. The young hunter ties your tokens with the rope's friendly handshake. The mender threads a spare wick into your palm, for dark halls that don't know you yet. The grandmother tugs your hood ruff forward a whisper, so your face will ride inside warm air when you step outdoors again. Door manners for weather, the kind you didn't know you needed until today. The sea brightens from pewter to polished tin to the exact color of a promise kept. Even the horizon stops being dramatic and accepts its place like a seam that likes its job. On the sanctuary wall, the order of kindness hangs in its tidy sequence: kettle, fish, rope, lamps, berries, dog, door. And the door, last as ever, waits with that friendly patience doors learn from being held for guests. You rest your palm on its frame. It feels like a heartbeat at rest. Breath, the elder says, because some words brighten every moment they pass through. Your ribs open like well-oiled hinges. Warmth. Your pocket stone nods, summer in miniature. Respect. You touch the ice with your mitten, not a claim, only a thank you. Then brush a whisker of snow from the carved dog on the floor so its dream can finish without draft. The rope taps your wrist. Here. Pace. Me. Gentler than ever. The aurora seam, washed thin by day, still keeps one blade of green tucked in the crack, a bookmark for nights to come. You do not step yet. Farewell likes a full breath and 2 heartbeats of quiet. You give it both. The market murmurs blessings under its breath. The house of songs arranges its blankets so the room will nap properly after you go. The kitchen puts one more heart of steam into the air so the corridor can eat before it sleeps. The village, which did not need you and welcomed you anyway, stands with you at the threshold as if the world was exactly the right size for everyone's goodbye to fit. When you finally lift your foot, you know the last walk under green fire is waiting, and that the corridor will remember your steps the way people remember a friend who listened well and laughed softly when the kettle tried to be dramatic.
The corridor greets your last footsteps as if it had been saving a quieter version of itself for this moment. Lamps ride in careful hands. Their cone hoods make narrow, obedient rivers of gold that pour along the blue walls without splashing. The seam above still threads a blade of aurora, the green kept small for morning. But even that little ribbon knows the job. It draws you onward like a soft arrow nobody feels bossed by. Your breath already knows the rhythm. Long ooh, small inhale, a kindness given back to the room with each exhale. Door manners everywhere, even between rooms that know each other by smell. The cloak artist lifts each curtain with 2 fingers so warmth doesn't bolt. You bow to the air so it will not feel chaste. At a niche, the grandmother trims a wick by the size of a thought. The flame answers with an evenness that looks like gratitude in a tailored coat. You begin to understand how farewells happen here. Nothing dramatic, only a steady tidying of light and sound, a smoothing of fur and snow, a few last instructions whispered to rooms so they don't worry after you go. Keepsakes gather with the hush. The bone worker meets you by the ledger rope and presses a needle into your mitten. Barbless, polished, eye like a tiny moon. For mending hours, he says, and the phrase lands in your pocket like a tool you'll remember on a day when time looks frayed. The soapstone carver ties an even smaller charm to your braid, a dot of green stone with a scratched line of light, a seam of aurora you can carry without scaring it. The mender tucks a folded strip of fish skin into your palm. It becomes glue when you're patient, he says, which is absolutely the point. Your turn. You unclasp the pocket stone, the first warm lesson of this place, from your glove and set it on the reed mat by the hearth where morning lamps warm it without fuss. For new hands, you tell the cloak artist. She nods, pleased, and slides a pebble smaller cousin into your mitten, warmed in her sleeve. For the walk between doors, she answers. The young hunter asks nothing, so you give him the tiny kelp spiral you carved last night. Rough, sincere. He laughs in the quiet way lamps approve of and threads it onto his own rope end, where it can watch the world behave. The elder hangs the bone flute on its peg one notch higher, as if to give it a better view of your last procession. Then she takes it down again and plays the two-note home sign, softer than breath. The notes do not cling, they drift among you like patient moths, touching sleeves, landing in pockets, settling on lamp glass where they can keep warm even after sound goes the bed. Children who learned festival steps the gentle way place 3 suit ovals across the floor in front of you, quiet footprints pre-drawn, then sweep them away as soon as your boots pass, so the corridor will not catch cold remembering a path that is safely finished. The order of kindness, kettle, fish, rope, lamps, berries, dog, door, waits for you along the last stretch, like 7 friendly signs nodding at a traveler they've seen off before. At the kettle niche, you pour a small coin of tea upward for the ceiling to drink. It answers by holding its green seam steady for a heartbeat longer. At the fish mark, a child leans close and whispers to your sleeve, "Future breakfasts," and you realize it is both a goodbye and a plan. At the rope, your wrist receives one last tap. Here, pace, me, from 3 different hands, so the grammar will follow you even where the walls don't hum. Lamps, you trim one, lightly, the braid aligning under your thumb as if it had been waiting for you to learn this gesture. Berries, the cloak artist smears a smallest dot at your lip, bright as a private joke. Dog, you circle the snow pup the way polite feet do. Someone has given it a soot fish to dream about, which is probably why it looks so professionally content. Door, last as ever, patient as ever. At the threshold to the veranda, the sky looks scrubbed. The white mouth that earlier tried to chew the world now chews its own boredom far away. Your new pocket pebble remembers its duty and offers a modest warmth like a good friend carrying an extra sweater. The elder lifts a lamp so the cone paints a thin stare of light onto the snow outside, and the village seems to align itself with that ray. Market at one shoulder, house of songs at the other, kitchen steam half a sentence behind, sleds breathing soft on their pegs. Blessings arrive in the local dialect of understatement. Walk like a rope, someone says. Don't bully the kettle, adds another, and the laughter arrives small and lamp safe. Right to the wall when you return, the grandmother says, which here means, let us hear you coming before you arrive.
The young hunter touches his brow, renewing the soot crescent that spells safe return. Then, with his thumb, renews yours, careful as a good editor. You carry your weather now, he repeats, anointing the new sentence. The mender tucks your mittens cuffs inside your sleeves with that same stitcher's calm you've come to trust. The cloak artist squares your hood ruff so it makes a warm cave for your face against the outdoor air. In the market dusk, the ledger rope receives one more knot. Your name, tied in the shape of a promise only you and the rope will read the same way. You bow to the door because doors remember gestures longer than people remember speeches. The elder keeps one mitten on your sleeve, present tense, not past, while her lamp lowers to shine on the first 3 steps. Breath, she says, as if the word were bread. Warmth, your pebble answers from your glove. Respect. The corridor hums a last agreeable ooh for the road. You take the steps exactly as taught, small, steady, without trying to impress gravity. The air outside tastes honest and afraid. Behind you, hands do not wave. Waving is for distance, but you can feel the village standing there like a hearth that has decided to remember your chair a little longer than necessary. At the edge of the veranda, you turn your head just enough to see the green seam once more. The sky's bookmark in the ice, the quiet arrow that made a map out of kindness. You do not say goodbye. You say, see you when the lamps ask for stories, which is the correct phrase here. The elder's lamp goes out with a satisfied blink, not because it is empty, but because it has finished its sentence. In your mitten, the new stone keeps a small summer. Under your ribs, the flute's 2-note home sign finds a shelf and sits down. You step into the pale day, carrying the village exactly where it expects to be carried, lightly, attentively, in the grammar of breath. The corridor keeps your last footprints the way a page keeps an underline, thin, respectful, a promise to find this sentence again.
The wind down begins as the world slows to match your quiet. Your steps become soft ideas, then smaller ones, and then only the gentle movement of a coat whose seams remember careful hands. The sky's pale seam widens, not bright, not loud, just a light that understands patience, the way a kettle understands it will be sung to and therefore behaves. You breathe, and the breath doesn't need to prove anything. You listen, and the listening feels like a blanket smoothed twice with the palm, once for warmth and once for reassurance. The village rests behind you, not far, never far. A room tidied after a good evening, lamps trimmed, wicks straight, mats aligned, door set so it will not rattle when the wind practices. In your glove, the small stone keeps its gentle promise without asking for attention. On your wrist, the rope's memory lingers. Here, pace, me. Like a friendly note folded into a pocket for later. If thoughts arrive, they arrive as quiet visitors, remove their boots, speak softly, and find their own way to a chair. Your shoulders do not negotiate with the air. Your jaw does not audition for any roles. Your eyes keep the horizon in the corner where it belongs, like a book you'll finish tomorrow. Everything you learned, breath, warmth, respect, keeps doing its work without making speeches. The sea becomes the sound of a room calming itself. The aurora, even gone, feels present, a gentle underline in the day.
You are escorted now by ordinary light and the smallest company of good habits. There is nothing to solve. There is only a long, even exhale, the weight of the blanket, the fan's soft hum, the assured feeling that if the kettle tried to be dramatic, you would smile, and it would laugh, and both of you would fall quiet together. Let your breath take the next sentence for you. Let your eyes let go. Let the corridor keep watch as it always does. Let the door remain open only as a feeling. Let the night finish its paragraph exactly as it wants. Slowly, kindly, completely. End of story. Sweet dreams.